top nations framework. The last rescue resort to sustain leads is GNH adoption. The left ESG leads work for a rescue goal care plan on SDG goals. Best to spot at the midpoint of goals crisis is to adopt alternate GNH instead of GDP over time to reduce the damage to nations governing leads pillars to sustain. The national implementation leads are the strong personalities for future humanity to overcome the SDG issue and stop damaging business complexities posed directly on countries' leadership psychology traits issues. And still, they are unresolved issues, SDG targets in crisis. The alternative accelerative GNH lead implementation can be embedded into policies for better law and governance bodies policies than the past long-listed 169 indicators of GDP that most of the countries lead, struggling and challenged at grades of countries in SDG implementation. Scientifically strongly approved, this rehabilitates human national lead spirits within system enhancement, an alternative method to avoid the downward spiral of the country's leads. The nation's implementation leaders will bring down pressing pressures of the burnt-out world economic ESG goal relief for a while. Reducing the burden on the human GDP sector drives it to evenly balance its control by rerouting the 33 indicators to human GNH, then comparing countries' human indicators to the 169 SDG indicators. For sure, these nations' implementation leaders' short relief effort will bring a stop to winning or achievements rating and brings more pride in celebrating the human ESG governance leaders' efforts. Furthermore, when nations adopt an accelerator to boost the human spirit and extend support to grow ESG leaders in the implementation of priority and SDG relevant issues rather than dropping off achievement of goals efforts. The goal leads to the governance lead loads being reduced when individualized human smiles build better leads for future miles through GNH than GDP. Future leads lessons will be trained on GNH to solve the SDG, to finish later parts to lead the journey, letting the governance-challenged countries lead still be part of the SDG race. Governance and law must urge to let frail lagging and leading countries bring GNH indicators into metric evaluations implementation of SDG goals. The best SDG target table, A9 goal alternative in the nation's implementation leaders' world economic goal, is to start ESG leadership with GNH. Gross national happiness is a measure qualitative of both economic and moral progress that was introduced by the King of Bhutan in the 1970s as an alternative to gross domestic product. Rather than focusing single GDP gear wheel to assist, now added more GNH national wheels to balance the load and offload the burden on countries' leads on quantitative economic measures. This quality GNH considers more evolving mix of quality of good human life factors to aid the ESG leaders in address the implementation of SDG issues. The table number 9 below alternate GNH subtopics. The table number 9 description of adopt human lead living pillars of gross national happiness indicators. More indicators about the specific elements in the box 07 are below. The box 07 shows how the gross national happiness index is calculated based on 9 components and their subcomponents. Each component has a different weight, and each subcomponent has a different contribution to the component. The research found our implementation pillars to support the underperformance, challenged and lower the incidence of governance lags, excellences of the 4 happy pillars of GNH. The nation happy human pillars. Nation implementation lead pillars form the basis of happy human habitat homes for the 9 dimensions of GNH, namely psychological well-being, standard of living, good governance, health, community vitality, cultural diversity, time use, and ecological resilience. The government of Bhutan considers the national implementation to lead 4 pillars when deciding to enact legislation. In 1998, the government of Bhutan established the Center for Bhutan Studies and General National Happiness to conduct research on the thematic interpretation of GNH branches that are reflected in human psychological well-being, which includes life satisfaction, positive emotions, negative emotions, and spirituality. The nation's implementation leaders is important because it directly measures the mentality and state of mind of the individual, which is the main component of happiness. The nation's implementation leaders is the health domain, and this section provides information on self-reported health status and disability. It's important for nations' implementation leaders as physical health, has a significant impact on the quality of life. Time use focuses on sleep and school. The nation's implementation leaders are important because how people spend their time can have a big impact on their happiness and well-being. Independence in education includes literacy in education.